This is the first in a series of videos on factoring polynomials, and we'll begin with factoring monic polynomials, that is, polynomials with a lead coefficient of 1. Now, in order to understand the process of factoring, it's actually multiplying in reverse. So we're going to watch the multiplication process and then see how we can reverse it. So we'll begin with multiplying x plus 3 times x plus 2. And you just need to watch because you've already seen this. We can create the expansion boxes. We can multiply x times x gives 1x squared. 3 times x and 2 times x gives those two boxes. Finally, 3 times 2 gives 6. We add the contents together and then get the result of x squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's take a look at another multiplication. X minus 4 times x plus 7. So we again create the expansion boxes. In the upper left box, we have 1x times 1x is x squared. In the two boxes on the diagonals, we have negative 4x and 7x. And then negative 4 times 7 equals negative 28. We add the contents and get x squared plus 3x minus 28. Let's look at just one more. X minus 8 times x plus 2. Create the boxes, fill them out, and we find that the product is x squared minus 6x minus 16. So now we're going to take a look at how we might factor a polynomial, which is kind of like on multiplying. In factoring, you would be given a polynomial like 1x squared plus 7x plus 12, and you're asked to find the two factors. Now if we go back to the expansion boxes, we know that the x squared term is going to be in the upper left box, and the constant term, in this case 12, is going to be in the lower right box. And the trick is to find the contents of the two diagonal boxes, the ones that are left over, so that everything works out. Now, in this case, we need two numbers in the outer blank spots, so that when I multiply those two numbers together, I get 12. But when I add those two numbers together, I'm going to get 7. So there visually is two numbers that multiply to give you 1 times 12, and two numbers that add up to 7. And you might be able to figure out already that those numbers would be 3 and 4. So we can fill in the outer boxes with 3 and 4. Complete the expansion box with 3x and 4x. Add the contents together to get x squared plus 7x plus 12. And we now know that the factors of x squared plus 7x plus 12 are x plus 3 times x plus 4. Let's take a look at another example. We are given the polynomial x squared plus 6x minus 55, and we'd like to factor that into x minus something times x plus something. Now we know that it's going to be an x minus and an x plus because the constant term is negative. It's negative 55. So now if we look at our expansion boxes, we're looking for the two magic numbers, which when I multiply them together will give you negative 55. And when I add them together is going to give you 6. And those numbers would be negative 5 and 11. So let's put them in place. Negative 5 and 11 go around the expansion boxes. Fill in the center, negative 5x and 11x. Add the contents. And now we're left with x minus 5 times x plus 11 as the factors of x squared plus 6x minus 55. Now sometimes you have a constant term, or you have to find two numbers that multiply together to give you one thing, but there are lots of different ways of multiplying, and you may have trouble figuring out what two numbers add together to give you what's required. If you're having trouble with that, make a list of all of the factor pairs for the constant term, in this case 72. So we're going to start with 1 times 72, because sometimes that's the one that we forget. Is 2 a factor of 72? Yes. 2 times 36, but those don't add to 17. Is 3 a factor? Yes. 3 times 24, but those don't add to 17. Is 4 a factor of 72? Yes, it is, but 4 and 18 don't work. Is 5 a factor? No. Is 6 a factor of 72? Yes, it is, but 6 and 12 don't work. And finally, is 8 a factor? Yes. So 8 and 9 would be the final factors. Now I'd like you to try these. Remember that for the first problem, you're finding two numbers that multiply to give you 1 times 6 and add to give you 5. Stop the video now, try these 4 problems, and then I'll show you the answers one at a time. Okay, we're now ready to see the answers. X squared plus 5x plus 6, the two numbers that multiply to 1 times 6 and add to 5 are 3 and 2. So the factors would be x plus 3 times x plus 2. In number 2, we need two numbers that again multiply to 6 but add up to 7. And in this case, those numbers would be 6 and 1. So the factors would be x plus 6 times x plus 1. In problem 3, we need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to negative 11. And those numbers would be 1 and negative 12. So the factors would be x minus 12 times x plus 1. And finally, we need the factor pairs that multiply to 24 and add to 10. And if those were difficult, you might try making your factor list. So that would be 1 and 24, which don't work, 2 and 12, which don't work, 3 and 8, which don't work, and finally 4 and 6. So the solution to number 4 would be x plus 4 times x plus 6.